Welcome to the third episode of the third series of the Women in CX podcast, a series dedicated to real talk conversations between women in customer experience. Listen in as we share our career stories, relive the moments that shaped us, and voice our opinions as loudly as we like about all manner of CX subjects. I'll be your host, Clare Muscutt, and in today's episode, I'll be talking to a woman who's led digital transformations for some of the world's best-known retail brands. Let me introduce you to today's inspiring guest. She started a career on the frontline service desk before progressing into IT and business analysis at House of Fraser. She then became a consultant specialising in e-commerce and led digital transformation efforts for brands including Selfridges, The White Company, New Look, Debenhams, Michael Kors and TM Lewin. As an expert in her field, she now sits on the executive team as strategy director at Astound Commerce. Please welcome to the show CX sister Gita Samani. Hi Gita.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Awesome. Great to see you today. And your cat tower. How's the cat?
Cat's fine, thank you. She's hiding under the bed.
Oh yeah, mine always hides whenever there's anything noisy going on. So yeah, hopefully won't make an appearance just now. So I'm going to warm you up with a gentle question to introduce you to the Women in CX podcast, just to tell us a little bit about yourself and your connection with customer experience.
Thank you. My connection with customer experience. So I think we're all customers to start with. So it's not difficult to have a connection with customer experience, but I guess my first foray into this was like more than 20 years ago when I started working for House of Fraser in retail. So when you're working in retail, customer experience is at the forefront of everything, every decision back in those days. And I say back in the 90s, all pre-digital. The customer experience about what was in store and how you supported that. But not only is it about that, it's also about internal customer experience as well. And I didn't necessarily have an outward facing role, but I did have an internal facing role. And one of my roles was to support it was on a help desk. I started, on a help desk, and customer experience of being on a help desk is actually you're servicing your customers. So, it's been inherent in me from, I guess, one of my earliest roles. And ever since then, I've moved in that space in retail and then into digital and e-commerce. And with every iteration of my career, customer experience has obviously played a big part in that, not just for the end retailer or the end consumer, I should say. What's important to me about customer experience? So many things. How do you want to lead? How do you want your customers to remember you? How do you want your people that you interact with to remember you? And that's just the start of it. It can be anything from how you receive a package to how you greet someone at the shop door to how you respond on a telephone or an email. And there's just so many different ways that customer experience can be brought into your day-to-day world that it is now inherent in everything that we think about.
Interesting.
Sorry, I know that's a bit of a long answer.
Oh no, it's fine. We love long answers at Women in CX. But you had like several roles in like digital transformation, director of digital transformation, lots of contracting roles where you would come in and kind of re-engineer online retailers in their entirety. And I saw you do it at places like Michael Kors, wasn't it? It was one, The White Company, so many amazing brands. And in terms of kind of like taking that step from the retail world, servicing internal customers, and then going into very technical roles as a woman in technology, I just wondered like if we could chat a little bit around digital transformation, because for me it's problematic to customer experience a lot of the time, because what I see happening frequently is technology-led decisions that are made to answer operational or business problems, but seldom are the technologies selected and organised in a way that delivers more value for customers and employees. I just wondered, as an expert in this area, if you could give us some insight into how we can challenge that and ensure that customer experience isn't just an output of a range of technologies and is something that's designed to deliver value.
Absolutely. It's really interesting. I think my career, starting with the help desk, my career, it moved me actually into IT, and I was a business analyst. And a business analyst is somebody who, takes a business's requirements to then outline technical solutions for them. And that's where I think I probably really gained that real interest in making sure that we were delivering solutions that were right for the business, and thinking about what the business needs are, what their objectives are, in order to ensure the technology matches, as opposed to thinking, here's the technology, how can we make it retrofit to what we need, because IT have made a decision. And I think that evolvement of my thinking and my career in that space has really helped me in all the roles that I've done. And I've worked alongside tech in every role that I played. I even married one of them, who I met at the White Company. he was my architect and my business head, but they do come hand in hand. Having the hat on of the business and the consumer is so super important when thinking about CX. Ensuring you have the influence and acumen to be able to drive those decisions with technology, because they do have a strong voice. I've found in my career, which has spanned over 20 years, that it used to be very, very tech-led. It then got very business-led, and it's now going into that tech-led again with headless and, those different types of technology. But do they deliver against a business need, or do they deliver against a tech need? And these are questions that I love to delve into with the clients, where they say, oh, we've selected this platform. I'm like, hold on, take a step back. You've selected something, but you tell us what your business problem is, or tell us what you're trying to achieve. Then let's see if that technology is right for you and your business and your team, and how you want to operate, because that is so important in digital transformation. So I guess it comes with experience. In every role that I've done, I have worked at the White Company, which is where I met my husband.
We'll come back to that shortly.
Where Michael Kors, where I was a director of e-commerce and operations as part of a project team to implement the European digital experience. And that customer experience spanned from fulfillment to marketing to customer service. And we were launching, the US had, North America had a US site and a Canadian site in English, and the Canadian one was in French. We were launching 5 sites or 6 sites in 5 different languages, 6 different currencies, something like that. But then how do you ensure that the experience that you want to drive as Michael Kors actually is reflected in all the customer touch points that happen, whether that be if you phone up a call center and you respond in German or in Spanish, or you receive your packaging and all your packaging information is in German or Spanish, because that's how you placed your order. All those touch points of ensuring that proposition is met with the right experience, I strive for that in all my engagements.
No, that's great.
Sorry, another long answer.
Yeah, just apologising. It's all good. I was just thinking, I wanted to unpick a couple of things that you said there. And first of all, I was going to ask you a question around when it comes to the business or the stakeholders. When you're kind of challenging why that technology, what is it that's driving them to pick a technology first rather than think about the business challenge or the customer experience that they want to create? Why do they do that?
Sometimes it's, to be honest, I don't really know. I mean, when we're doing, historically, when I've been involved in doing platform selections or anything like that, I've always made sure that the understanding the people doing the job, who are going to use the platform, have the input required, as opposed to the e-com director or the IT director that are making those decisions where they're never going to use the platform. They're not going to come out of Monday Trade and say, right, we need to do this promotion, or we need to drive this, or and actually someone has to execute on that. So ensuring that the right people are in the room is so important. And therefore, your point around why do you think it is so tech led? There are so many advances in tech, and tech companies, Uber is a tech company, but actually it's a cab company, but it's a tech company. But so many tech companies are driven by the tech, and therefore when you get someone in front of you selling you the tech, then you think, okay, that's great, but let me really go back inside to my business to understand, is that right for my business? And that's what's super important.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting because, like you said, you came from that business analysis route originally. So that grounding in kind of collecting requirements based on business needs has really obviously meant that as you've moved through the levels, you've been able to maintain that perspective on it. Do you think, I think it's sometimes like the next shiny thing. So I know of a lot of examples, I'm not going to mention them, but where kind of the IT level directors and that side of the team are looking at capabilities that they want to employ. So like machine learning, advanced artificial intelligence, all that kind of thing. But actually the customer experience challenges are so much more simple than that need to be resolved before they think about how they can use artificial intelligence to drive superior experiences. You pointed out, kind of call centers, fulfillment, packaging. You gave loads of examples with the online retail experience. So I think it's sometimes like it's the shiny distraction, isn't it, of this all sounds like capabilities we need for the future and what we could do with that, but actually is it what you need right now? And and is it gonna
absolutely. And I think it's also with the drive to, we need to be more agile, and therefore we need to have this type of team set up in order to be able to do agile, and we need to have this type of technology to enable us to be able to do that. And it comes in that kind of with that kind of thinking. But you're right, it is about the next new shiny thing, and there are so many new shiny things. But when you find a technology that is going to be right for your customer, then it is a bit of a game changer actually, and it makes a huge difference to how a business will operate when a technology can support all elements of the business, not just technology.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's an enabler and an underpinning of what you're able to do, isn't it? Not the other way around. But for some reason, I think because, as you say, the advances and everything is moving so rapidly, it has become the lead on some of these things. And as a result, the integration challenges that businesses experience that have another knock-on impact on the customer, and sometimes the length of time it takes to implement some of those transformations. By the time they actually get there, it wasn't what the customer needed or wanted in the first place.
So many things have been, we've gone with MVP, stuff's been de-scoped, really can't go live with that. Well, and are you set up as a business to ensure that you're ever evolving that customer experience through the technologies that you have and optimizing them? That's all part of digital transformation, not just getting the product in, but evolving it, learning, testing, learning, always evolving that whole experience and capabilities for the consumer.
Yeah, and
because ultimately it's all about retention of the consumer in your customer experience.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you said, even as a digital transformation director, you were thinking about, well, what is this end-to-end customer experience? And even though we might be changing a piece of technology that impacts communications and fulfillment, actually, how does that translate to the vision we want to create as an experience across all of those touch points and channels? And I'd love to hear more digital and transformation directors talking about that kind of thing. So thank you for that.
Well, I wasn't a digital transformation director. That wasn't my title.
Oh, sorry. What was it?
So that was, I was director of e-commerce and operations at Michael Kors, whereby, but I was, no, but it's fine. It was a huge transformation program. The US had delivered what they needed to do, but the European platform and experience was an 18-month project to get it right. And they take time, they take money in terms of expense to get the right team in place. You can't expect business as usual teams to undertake a digital transformation, and you need that top-down buy-in to ensure that your business is bought into actually what your end goal is. And that end goal is to, was to extend reach into Europe, but it needed all those tick boxes, all those exercises, those points of, definitely had top-down buy-in, definitely had the right team in place. Wasn't a business as usual team, because you would not succeed with doing that, because it's unfair, and that leads to burnout, and therefore you don't get the right results. You'll end up sacrificing on something, and therefore it's so super important to have the right structures and outline the plan ahead of time to ensure that you can cover what you're biting off before you can chew.
I get you, yeah. And having an agile way of working means it has to sit outside of the BAU team, doesn't it? And people brought together, especially to do this project, so they can focus on it and make those changes happen. You mentioned a word there, burnout. I know
something I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I know, because you and I, we've known each other a little while now, because this is the fourth time we've tried to record this podcast. And last time we spoke, you and I were both in exactly the same place of burnout, weren't we?
We were.
And we met and we were like, right, let's do this. And both of us were like, I really can't. I just don't have it in me.
I think I tried to fob off my tears or my runny eyes with a hay fever.
Oh, well, no, it was good because we were able to be honest with each other about how we were feeling. And I know on that day, being able to recognize the same symptoms in one another, but to see that reflected back was really powerful, because I think, like, in my internal world, I sometimes feel like I'm the only person in the world that feels the way that I do and works the way I do, but I don't really know another way to be, because I've always worked that way. So I just thought it would be good for us to kind of bring this out into the open.
I think it is great, and you cannot underestimate one. I mean, I think this is probably synonymous with the way that I've operated throughout my career, but you cannot underestimate this last 18 months that we've all had, and the whole world has shared in this. The whole world has actually. It's not, the whole world will talk about the pandemic. It's not something that just hit certain countries, and what that means is, we've all been working from home. We've all been, where a conversation in the office could just be had in a corridor, you're all of a sudden got a half an hour meeting booked in your diary to have something that could just be a very quick 5-minute conversation, and then all of a sudden your diary gets back to back, and you don't have time to go to the bathroom, and you don't have time to have lunch, and it becomes overwhelming. It really does. And I think I'm probably a what's the word? Oh, I can't think of the right word, but it's probably my own fault that I'm like that, because one, I probably like to be in the know of so many things and keep my finger in many pies, ensuring that that we're trying to do the best that we can in everything that we do. But there is a limit to how much you can do that and then actually do work at the same time. When I say do work, actually physically produce deliverables and drive certain initiatives forward. And I think it just got too much for me at the time. Really did. I couldn't control my diary. It was just all a bit much. And I think when we spoke, as you said, you recognized it in yourself as well, when we both sat here and we're like, and we just literally breathed. We just breathed. And I think that was so important to realize that it's not just yourself. There are other women out there, or people out there, not just women, but there are people out there who are feeling this way because they are striving for so much. And I do think it's a symptom of my own making that I am a bit of a perfectionist, and I like to make sure that everything is right and everything is done properly. And I do get slightly irritated when it doesn't happen, and it's something that I've been pulled up on. So, but sometimes you just have to let the small things go, and you have to look at the big picture, and you have to say what's really important.
Yeah, I've battled with perfectionism my whole life. We won't go into kind of where these things come from, but it definitely happens, I think, at a very young age, where somehow you're conditioned to think that, that the results and like the hard work that you put in and the reward you get at the end is what you push yourself so hard for. But just picking up on some of the language you use there, I'm the same. Like internalizing it, it's my fault. I've done this to myself. But then that's like punishing in its own right, isn't
Yeah,
it? Is
it is.
that's another example of like why we end up pushing ourselves to the point of burnout and exhaustion, because we can't take that step back and go, actually, you don't need to do this, it's all going to be okay. Like, you don't have to go to the point of exhaustion. And for me, I just wanted to share an experience of just the last week. Obviously, I've been leading a startup for the first time in my life, and spent 6 months pretty much working 7 days a week, 15-hour days. And it's unsurprising that my physical and mental health suffered. And at the point you and I had that little moment of, I can't do this, was a couple of weeks ago. And I realized that actually the only thing I can do in that situation when I feel like that is actually to stop, literally stop. And um, and that, yes, there's this huge fear the world will crumble if I'm not doing all of this stuff. But what I discovered is it doesn't. Actually, things carry on quite quite normally without such a big input from me. And actually being able to just prioritize a smaller number of things or priorities and just say, we're just going to do these things, or I'm just going to do these things really well. So it means I have a really untidy house when I've got a deadline to meet, but that's okay. Whereas I think before I was just trying to do everything perfectly all of the time. But it is important to raise this and share this, that actually you're not alone if you're
Not
feeling
alone.
perfectionism. You're not alone if you're feeling burnout. But the key message: stop.
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 Definitely stop. Take time out. Take some me time. And it's been so difficult for people to have me time in lockdown, because where do you go?
Yeah.
It's like the shops weren't open. You can't just go and have a mooch around Selfridges. You just couldn't do that. And which is what I like to do. But
So smooch on Selfridges, oh, don't we all? I miss using our bags. Yeah, I suppose for a lot of people, that I think you're right with that connection with lockdown. Actually, I think many of us, I mean, I did, took on bigger projects, or like I started a whole new business during a pandemic. I know other people that started, I'm going to write a book at this point, and I think it was, a bit of a distraction from the reality of being locked down with the world seemingly going to hell in a handbasket. And that additional pressure, as you pointed out in the kind of the middle of this podcast, was that, yeah, everything isn't okay around us, but as perfectionists that put ourselves into work probably when we're already under pressure, it kind of multiplies the impact.
yes, it does.
And
It does.
we can only keep focusing, like you said, for so long until eventually something has to give. And unfortunately, on that day, it was
Both of us.
both of us. Yeah, the little emotional straw that broke the camel's back. So just to bring us home, then I talked quite a lot there, and this is your podcast episode. Apologies for that.
No, not at all. I think it's. I think that the point is that it's great that we're able to share these experiences, because we are not alone, and I'm sure it's absolutely normal when people will listen to this that they're thinking the same.
So someone who's like suffering similarly to me and trying to find these ways of stopping, I go and ride my horse. Actually, this week I volunteered for 3 days to just go and do like mucking out for other people and look after their horses, because having that time away from this the desk, the office, it re-energizes me and it changes the way I feel. Yes, it's something else to do, but it changes the whole dynamic of my day by going and doing something else, not just trying to sit here and and keep hammering through. What are you doing to help yourself?
Well, there's a couple of things actually, and I think my husband and I, we definitely love our holidays. We really do, and we've really missed that during this time. And it's been very difficult in terms of, like I said, having me time. But that day that we last spoke about, when I had my little
Me too. I have mine
challenge.
as well. Challenge.
My
Just make it
challenge.
French.
When I had my little challenge, I literally took time out. I just stopped. You just have to stop, and you do. You have to take the time out, whether or not that's sitting reading a book or going for a walk or whatever it is. But in terms of longevity, making sure that you always have some time for some me time and non-work thinking time. I'm very driven by what I do and I love what I do, but I know I have to switch off, and I know that going on a spa day or going on holiday or whatever it is going to help that. And I have been I have been getting out and trying to do some more walking, but I went through a lot of winter literally just sat at my desk and not getting out, and it's very difficult. And you just have to take a step away from your desk and think about yourself.
Yeah,
be a bit selfish.
Yeah, but it's selfish, but in this like strange way that I feel uncomfortable being selfish for some reason. I don't really understand it, but it's not being selfish, it's caring about yourself. And if you don't prioritize that, you can't be there to serve everyone and deliver amazing projects and change the world. But I don't know why
Can't.
I'm today years old. I'm just realizing this, but I know, as you said, we're not alone. Well, anyway, Gita, it's been awesome to have you. If you could leave the women in CX that are listening one piece of advice, what would you say that would be for them?
Always think about the customer, but remember yourself, you are a customer to someone somewhere. So what does customer experience mean to you? Think about yourself. And I don't mean that in a selfish way. I mean that look after yourself in that way, because we get to where we are and what we can achieve because of where we've come from. And you should never forget that, because this body and your mind has brought you to where you are. So never forget yourself.
Love it. Well, I know you're going to a spa this weekend, so I'm very jealous. I hope you have a lovely time, and keep looking after yourself. Thank you, everyone.
And you too. And get some more riding in.
Get some more riding and some rest. Thanks ever so much for joining us today, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Women in CX podcast with me, Clare Muscutt. If you enjoyed the show, please drop us a like, subscribe and leave a review on whichever platform you're listening or watching on. And if you want to know more, please join us at womenincx.community and follow the Women in CX page on LinkedIn. Join us again next week, where I'll be talking to a woman who's leading customer experience at Uber and discussing the evolution of platform-based business CX. See you all next week.